Hi, this is Ian Mitchell with VTech Hospitality, showing off our CTM-S2116, which is a combination of our hidden base, the CTM-S2110, along with our cordless color handset, the NGC C3416HC. Now, one of the unique things about this is, of course, we have this nice color display, and we also have a dynamic speed dial list which can be scrolled through. So if we see here on the handset, we do have a dedicated emergency button, which is essentially speed dial 1. We also have a dedicated message, which is speed dial 2, dedicated front desk, which is speed dial 3, and then right in the middle here is actually our 4th speed dial, and this can be dynamically labeled to whatever we'd like. And then we notice here there's actually a speed dial button. So if you program speed dials 5, 6, 7, 8, all the way up to 14, these speed dials will show up in a scrolling list on this button. Now, going over the display a little bit more, we do see that we have a language setting. We also have the ability to list a room number up at the top here. And you also have the ability to customize the background, and we'll show you a little bit about that, how to perform that in a little bit later. We want to show you the speed dial list here. So if I push the speed dial button, we'll notice that we get this scrolling list, and we still have the room number at the top, and then we can actually scroll through, again, speed dials 5 through 14. And you can actually label these. You'll notice that some of these buttons we've labeled already. So I've got front desk, I've got room service, but you can also add a special character which will just completely take the label away and leaves you with just the icon. So we also give that flexibility in case you don't want to have those buttons labeled with any text, you just want the icon itself. So we'll show you how to customize this along with showing the background. But just wanted to show you this nice new sleek handset that we offer. It does have the built-in speaker, does have the backlit keys. Of course, you have your answer button, hang up, and those dedicated buttons. And then if you are on the idle screen, of course, the up and down will change the volume rocker itself. And then we have this nice little charging cradle. Makes it for a nice elegant look when it sits in the charging cradle. So one thing we should mention is we do have this clock that will be present on the display. So when we are looking to design our background that we want to use, we want to make sure that we're not putting too much contrast around the time, which could affect that. But that does give you quite a bit of space between here in order to put a logo, or you could put a logo near the bottom, or if you just want to go with a standard single color, you can do that as well. So to show you how we program these buttons, we'll go ahead and jump into the web UI and show you how the speed dials get programmed, and then also what it looks like in order to put a new display onto the phone, or a new background onto the phone. Okay, so we can see now that we're over in the web UI of the 2110. We want to first go to the speed dials. So we'll jump over here. And when you're leaving the speed dial section, this top speed dial section here, this is basically if you are using our 15 series handset on the hidden base, so we can kind of ignore that for now. We want to go down to this NGC section, and this is where we have the 14 speed dials for the phone. Now, as I've labeled in the description here, these first three, these are basically the hard keys. So we've got the emergency, and then the value for it, the message, the value for it, the front desk icon, the value for it. Now, once we get to this 4th slot, this is that middle soft key that's right below the display. So this label that you do put here, that's what shows up on the display itself. And then, of course, you have the value set, which is the speed dial. And then once we get to the 5th, 6th, 7th, and so on down the list, this is where the speed dials will show up in that speed dial list. So we can see that we can name them. We have front desk, we have room service, and of course the value is the speed dial itself, and the icon index is which icon you want to actually have listed. Now you'll notice with these other ones, they actually don't have anything in the description. So as part of the programming, you do have to have something in the description itself. But if you want to have just the icon show up and you don't want any text, you can actually use a special character, which is why we see a space here. But it's more than just an actual space. So let me pull up something and we'll show what we're using for the special character in order to basically let the speed dial show up but not actually have any text on it. So we're using what's called a punctuation space. It's the Unicode character of U plus 2008. It also is the HTML decimal of ampersand pound 8220. Now, if you put it into a config file, what it ends up looking like is this kind of square box if you were to punch it in. And the easiest thing to do is basically if you have that character like copied in a text file, is basically just copy and paste it. So because I already have it here, I can basically just do a Control C, and then I could click over into my webui, and I could just start pasting it through Control V into those slots, and that will introduce the special character. Of course, if you're doing a configuration file for this, which you probably are going to be doing, right? You're going to make your golden sample, and then you'll export it, and then you'll generate the files through our admin tool, or you could just be generating, maybe your golden sample through the config file itself. In which case, what that'll look like is when you get into the programming, the parameters are the speed dial account, name, and number. And then name is where you would put in that special character. So we see here on these lower ones where we've got that character copied in. Now, the account is not actually the SIP account. The account equals here, when we're looking in the config, this is actually the icon index. So we can see for like button 5, which is actually the 6th one, we're using icon 3, icon 4, icon 5. Now to show you what that looks like, let me bring up a little table here. So here is a section that shows all the icons, and I'll stop on this screen a little bit, so if you want to pause the video, you can kind of, always reference back to it and see the list of icons itself. But icon 1, or if you were to use in the parameter, it would be account equals 1. That gives you kind of a front desk icon. Icon 2 is sort of like a bell icon. Icon 3 is a food cart. We also have an icon for like, voicemail, or, your ticket counter, emergency, laundry service, so various icons that you can use. And you can also see here with these images that the label itself for the icon can actually get fairly long. You can see that we're able to spell out in capital and full front desk room. And then you can also see here, this is about the maximum number of characters that you can get if you look in that bottom right-hand corner, just as an example of what you could do when you're labeling the speed dials themselves. So we come back to our configuration. The other thing that we should pay attention to is this hotel info FCS. So it is possible to label the guest name on the phone. And where this will show up is right above the clock. So if you remember when we were looking at the handset previously, we actually didn't have the guest name filled in. We were actually using that special character that we pulled here from our speed dials, and we had it programmed in this guest name slot, and that's what completely took the name out. But when we go to actually show you what it's like to actually put a custom background on, we'll actually program it with the guest name, so you can see where it'll actually show up on the phone itself. So another thing is this right here, this parameter, the file.hs_idle_logo equals, this is for the actual custom background. So the custom background does need to be hosted on a server. It can be a local TFTP server, HTTP server, whatever you want. And for the image itself, what we're looking for is a 240 by 320 resolution image that does have to be saved in a BMP format at 24-bit color. So once you have created that background, you can basically put it on a local server, put it on an internet server, as long as the base has access to it. And then you simply need to upload the configuration file, and then it will actually provision the base, and then it will start pushing the custom background over the DECT wireless technology. So if we wanted to push this new logo, we basically just need to take this file and push it onto the base. So what that'll look like now that we're back in the web UI is we'll just go over to servicing. Go down to provisioning, and however you push this, again, you could be using our admin tool to push the configuration, or you could be using a MAC address with like a DHCP option, so the device automatically pulls it in. And then of course, we do have different provisioning parameters. So if you were to, let's say, set a resync interval, and maybe you have the base resyncing every 5 minutes, once an hour, once a day, or on specific times, it'll go and fetch the configuration file, and if you happen to change the background image, or if you change, let's say, the guest name parameter, the base will automatically pull in the new information. So just to show off what this would look like, we'll go ahead and go to import configuration, and then we'll just go right here, select our file, and then we'll go ahead and do update from file. What we should notice shortly, as our base, it takes in the configuration file, it will download the image onto the base, and then we should notice the handset wake up, and then it will present a splash screen just temporarily for a few seconds while it initiates the DECT connection, and then we should eventually get to a splash screen where it starts counting up the percentage until the full completion. Now, because this is going over DECT, which of course was a protocol specifically made for voice communication, it doesn't have the highest bit rate. So it should take about 5 to 7 minutes for the process to fully complete, and it counts up all the way through the 100% completion. And then you will get a final splash screen just with a confirmation to hit OK before the new splash screen fully takes effect. Okay, so we can see that we're done here now. So we'll just come over and hit this OK button on the handset. And we can see the new display. So let's bring this in a little bit closer here. So we can see now that we brought this in, when we applied this, we went ahead and added our guest name. So we do see the guest name right under the logo. And again, this is from the configuration file. On the previous display that we saw, we used that special character in order to wipe out the name so it didn't show up. Because you can always just have the room number at the top if you want, or you can even have this be the name if you'd like that instead. The clock will always be visible right in the middle. And then of course we decided to put the nice VTech logo right here. But we have all this space up here if you wanted to add your own logo. And of course, if you didn't want to use any kind of background, if you wanted more just a solid color, you had even more flexibility in order to place your logo somewhere else. And then we can also remember that we can go back into our speed dial. And then again, we can see the way that those speed dials are programmed. We can scroll through the list, see ones that we have added the text labels or the ones that we do not have the text label on. And this does scroll through to the other side. So we notice that this is where we kind of started. So you could go up the list or you can go down the list, and you can always see the icon that you're on and then the one previous and next within your list. And then you just hit the select button if you wanted to make that phone call. And here's a side-by-side comparison of the actual custom image that we loaded onto the phone compared to what it looks like on the phone. Now the minor color differences, of course, are just because of the lighting and camera and how difficult it is to capture the LCD. But we can see the custom background only has the logo itself, the guest name, the clock, the speed dials, and all of the status icons on the top are simply overlaid over the image itself. So that's just showing off our new color handset that we have for our hospitality series. I hope you enjoyed this, and we'll see you on the next one.